Quitting your job to go all in is often badged as the only way. I think that advice might even be reckless. Now, I've been there, restless, obsessing over business podcasts, scribbling half-baked ideas into Notion, feeling like I had to build something, but terrified of throwing away any sense of stability that I had. And here's the danger. You jump too soon, you can burn those savings, burn out, and destroy any enthusiasm you had before you even begin. But do nothing and the years can slip by and that dream can start to gather dust. Now, through my own founder journey and through 5 years of interviewing founders on my podcast Innovate Eco, I've seen what actually works when you're first starting out, so you can start building powerful momentum before you actually launch. In this video, I'll give you 3 tips that helped me start to think like a founder, build momentum, and start to move forward before launching a business of my own. And you'll want to stick around for the third one, because that is the one that I wish someone had told me, and it would have saved me a hell of a lot of time if I'd heard it earlier. Hey, I'm Rob, and if you're new here, I'm an environmental scientist turned ecopreneur who's passionate that building planet-positive businesses can help us change the world for the better. For the past 5 years, I've been interviewing mission-led founders on my podcast Innovate Eco, and now I'm trying to build my own startup called No Longer Known right here on this channel. This channel is for people that want to build businesses, make money, and make a difference at the same time. So if that sounds like you, then please do hit the subscribe button and join me on this journey. So if you sat there like I was, and you've got that entrepreneurial drive, but you've not quite got the business idea yet that you're willing to put all your energy into and all your savings behind, then don't worry, I'm going to offer 3 practical tips that you can use right now to start building momentum on your founder journey. Number 1. So after I first graduated with a degree in environmental science and hearing the world is going to shit for several years, I wanted to go out there and make an impact straight away. But I was broke. I had all that debt from the college degree that I did, and therefore I needed to get a job. So I took a job in environmental consultancy. Sounds impactful, right? But the reality was not the case. I was mostly writing planning reports, telling people off, telling them what not to do. I was effectively playing defense against an avalanche. I wasn't creating change, I was just documenting damage. And the frustration began to grow. I knew I had more to offer, but I didn't have the savings or the idea at this point to go all in on my own business idea. Then one day I was out in the field doing a site survey. Clipboard and pen, the usual. And then I glanced over and saw another man doing a survey on an iPad. Now in 2012, this was pretty futuristic. So I went over and asked him what he was doing. And he said he was on an app that he'd created himself for surveying trees. He was doing it on the side alongside his consultancy. He was bootstrapping the business and it was actually doing really well. I don't know what came over me that day, but for some reason I asked him, "Are you hiring? Could you do with an extra pair of hands?" He looked at me and said, "Well, not really. To be honest, we haven't got much budget." But I said, "I'd be willing to do whatever it took as long as he could pay me something that would cover my rent." Then I just wanted to get involved in a startup that was doing something in the kind of environmental sector that I could get behind and start learning. You know, I was fortunate at that point. I didn't have many commitments. I just had a small flat to pay the rent on, so I could take a bit of a chance. And I'm so glad I did, because that job changed everything for me. There were just 3 of us at the start. It was really a scrappy startup, and I got thrown into all sorts, from marketing to rebranding, handling clients on my own, big clients. I learned so much more in just 3 months there than I did in 2 years at my previous job. I realized by doing this, by becoming an intrapreneur, as some people call it, I could learn so much while still getting paid. Admittedly, it wasn't getting paid much, but I was getting paid something. And I was learning everything I could along the way, getting close to the founder, asking questions every day. I saw how you grow a business, how you bootstrap it, the decision to take on investment or not to, how you can bring money in whilst building something bigger at the same time, how to hire people, how to fire people, how to bring in a co-founder, and definitely I also learned what not to do and the risks that come with that as well. So if you're not ready to start something yourself, then go out there and find a business that is just starting out that will have you on board. There's no shortage of them at the moment. These mission-led startups, I cover loads of them in the podcast Innovate Eco, and yeah, in this space in particular, there's loads of problems we need to solve in the environmental space, and there's loads of amazing businesses all over the world starting out that would be really thankful to have someone with the drive and passion to start and, you know, buy into that scrappy startup world. In fact, weirdly, I'd say being young and inexperienced here is actually an advantage. The average age of a startup founder is 45, which isn't quite what people have you envisage when you think of the young founder that's often portrayed in Silicon Valley. But that means that there's loads of opportunity for young people who've just graduated or who haven't even gone to college at all to bring in those softer skills around social media, website building, whatever it might be, something as a digital native in your 20s or 30s now that probably comes naturally to you and you wouldn't even think of necessarily as a skill set, but is really, really valuable to a founder who's a little bit older, who's just starting out. So think about what you can bring, think about how you can utilize those different transferable skills and just get applying, because you never know, just like I did, going up to that person in the field that day, asking if I could have a job. It just led me on that path. And really, it wasn't until I did it, I realized just how much I was going to learn. Number 2, after a couple of years of working at that business and with a founder that was determined to bootstrap his way to success, I found that things started to plateau and I was getting a little bit frustrated. So I started to think, what is my next move? I started to research MBAs online, going back to university. And in hindsight, I'm really glad I didn't. Getting into more debt, and I think that would have just confused me even further. You never know, it might have led to something, and I know plenty of people that have done MBAs and gone on to do great things. But for me, I feel like it would have been a bad move. So what did I do instead? Well, I decided I wanted to know what it was like to build a business of any sort. Even if I didn't have that idea where I was prepared to go all in on at the moment, starting something on the side, in the mornings, in the evenings, on the weekends, I wanted to see if I could build something profitable. But I still didn't have that big idea that I wanted to go all in on. So what could I do? It still needed to be something that I could get behind the mission of, that I was passionate about, because I knew I was going to have to work on this in the mornings, in the evenings, at the weekends, in my spare time. So outside of the environmental crisis and solving that, what other things was I passionate about? And that was music. So I researched starting a music blog, and at the time, niche blogs were absolutely blowing up. And so I started a blog about home recording studios and home recording equipment. I worked on it a couple of hours a day, in the morning before work or in the evenings, just while I was watching TV, whatever it was. And it wasn't revolutionary, but it was mine. And most importantly, it started to make money pretty quickly. I learned how to find an audience, but I also learned a big mistake along the way with that, which is tip number 3, which I'll come on to in a minute. I learned about finding market fit, about designing things that are needed out there and how to turn that into money. I learned about creating digital products. I learned about hiring. I even brought in writers. And I exercised the muscle of spending money to make money, spending larger amounts of money than I had previously and realizing that that's what you need to do to build a business. The younger me probably would have absolutely cringed at the fact of spending a few $100s on a blog post, for example. But that was the kind of thing that I realized, it feels like a lot of money at one point, and then all of a sudden it feels like not as much as you start to bring in profit. So just learning those things and practicing that alongside my job was really, really helpful. So then I had a choice. Do I quit my day job and go all in? It was making enough money probably to do so at that point, and I could have gone on and scaled it even further, built it out into other channels and grown this platform further. But then I took a step back and realized I just wasn't that passionate about it. It wasn't that lifelong mission and business that I wanted to go all in on. So I made the difficult decision at that point to sell that business. And in hindsight, it was a great decision because those niche blogs went on to kind of tail off. And as you'll know now, with the rise of AI content and things like that, those blogs that were optimized on what were people searching for online are really, really struggling. So what's the lesson here? Well, start something small, start it on the side, even if it's just for 30 days, learn how to build things, what it takes, how to find that product market fit, and start building that momentum as well. If it's something you're passionate about and you can get behind the mission of, then maybe when it starts to make money, you can go all in. And it's a nice risk-free way of trying something out. But even if it doesn't, don't worry. It's a win-win. It's always a win-win because the skills you'll learn from building something will be transferable into the next thing you do, into that business you finally launch. So don't think of it as a sunk cost. Even if you put hours into it before work or after work, it's never wasted time. Think of it all like building momentum. Imagine you're a snowball rolling down a hill. All these things that you're doing are building that momentum, are gathering things as they go along the way. And then when you finally do launch something, you'll have all this momentum behind you that you'll have built up without even really realizing it for when you finally launch. And number 3. Now this one's probably the biggest regret for me and the one that I wish someone had told me about sooner. And that is to start building your founder foundation, or what many people now call a personal brand. Now I didn't do this early on. I didn't like the idea of putting myself out there, of putting my face out there behind what I was doing. Musicians HQ that I talked about before, that blog, I did completely faceless. I didn't do anything on YouTube. I didn't do anything on any of the social media channels. I didn't build a newsletter. And therefore, it was great, but it meant that when I finally wanted to scale it or take that audience elsewhere, I just couldn't. I hadn't built that foundation. As I said before, that's not to say it was a waste of time completely. I still really valued that and I learned a lot from it, but it would have made things so much easier if I built that foundation and built that brand. The challenge, of course, there is that, kind of contradicting what I just said, if you end up pivoting into a different industry or something, then that audience is going to be harder to transfer. But if you really think long term about what your mission and values are, like mine now, I know I want to eventually, or I am building a business in this space, but I want to build something that is creating a healthier planet, is tackling environmental problems, then you can start to build a broad foundation around that. To use a nature analogy, as I love to do, imagine that you're building up the soil, you're building the health of the soil as a foundation. And then finally, when you come to plant a seed, which is the business, then that soil will be really healthy and ready to go, and that business will just fly. And this can take loads of forms. You can just start posting, just start exercising that entrepreneurial muscle and spark by blogging, by doing a podcast, by being on YouTube. Ideally, whatever it is, getting your face out there so that you're building that personal brand and an audience so that when you finally do launch, people understand, people trust you. Ideally, you'll have those 1,000 true fans, and then you can really start building that momentum and not have to start completely from scratch, which can be very tricky. So that's it. 3 tips to get going today before starting and launching as a founder without having to go all in. You've got work as an intrapreneur. You've got start a side hustle, even if you're not fully sure that it's what you want to work on in the long term, it's going to be a win-win. And finally, start building that founder foundation. Just start, as you'll see on many YouTube videos and blogs, is great advice, and it does sometimes work for some people, but it's not the only way. And hopefully this video has provided an alternative. If you're not quite ready to do that, there's still loads you can be doing in the meantime. So thanks for joining me on this new channel. I hope you enjoyed that and found that useful. If you're already doing one of those things that I mentioned in the video, you're already working at a startup or starting a side hustle, then leave it in the comment below. I'd love to hear more about that because I can't be the only one that did it. So if you haven't already, do subscribe to this channel and follow me along as I build my own brand here on the channel, No Longer Known. And I'm also going to be posting more videos like this with tips and tricks. And in the next video, which should be appearing on the screen somewhere here, then I will be talking more about what I did in this video at the start, about how do you find a startup to go and work for to help you maximize that opportunity. And I'll talk to you about that startup I talked about in this video, which is a bootstrapped one. And then I went on to work for a VC-backed, investor-backed company, and I'm going to weigh up the pros and cons of the two. So yeah, do click on that video and I'll see you next time.